What if you could help others to find the power to heal themselves? Physically, emotionally, and spiritually.
When I started teaching my classes, it was in 2002, and I was just doing the past life regressions and contacting the subconscious part. But then as the time went on and we found how powerful this was and what we could do with it, a lot of the students began saying, you know, advanced past life regression doesn't really tell what it's all about. This is so much more than that. We think you should change the name. So it was a few years ago we decided to change the name to Quantum Healing Hypnosis Technique. And this is the healing technique that we've now been teaching it, well, since 2002, that's 12 years.
What if you could time travel with them? Visit mythical places or angelic realms, other worlds, other galaxies. Help others to speak to their higher selves. You can. Dolores has taught thousands of people from across the world how to use QHHT, and now you can learn her method by going directly to dolorescannon.com. And don't forget to mention the discount code MORETALKS. Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Kevin Moore Show. Now if you want to stay up to date with all my latest videos, just click that subscribe button below, as it really helps to support the show. If you're new to the show, I interview guests from a spiritual perspective, covering mainstream and alternative subjects and much more. Now on today's show, I'm about to be joined by my guest, Mama Rose. Now Mama Rose combines being an artist, a psychic, a singer-songwriter, and building bridges between the known and unknown realities. Mama Rose offers one-to-one session work to dive deep into the healing process through meditation, energy work, and psychic readings, which often include mediumship. Now, before we get into the interview, she's just going to give me a quick sample reading, and then we'll get into her story. So, Mama Rose, welcome to the show, and it's all yours.
Okay. All right, Kevin. So, to start out, why don't you let me know a question that you have or an intention that you have? So, that can be anything from a really specific directed question to a more broad question to just kind of a, well, these are some of the things that I've got floating around in my mind right now.
So a question, well, I'm just going through immigration, and that process can take up to December 2023. Honestly, I have no idea where life's taking me right now. I don't know much about nothing. And I have just applied for a travel permit, and I sent that in along with my application with my immigration, and I don't know if I'm going to get it, and I don't know a lot really, but yeah, what do you I guess, what do you see in regards to what I'm saying, maybe, if that's the question?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, combination of a question and an intention. So that's yeah. So, and the reason that I like to start that way is because that really helps me open a really clear channel, kind of like creates some structure. And then within that structure, it's a lot easier to have the freedom of the information to flow. So that's great. That's a good place to start. And we'll also allow that to be something that magnetizes anything else that's connected to it too. Okay.
Right. Yes, of course.
Know how things go and how everything's kind of intertwined. So, all right. So I do like to use oracle cards for myself as just kind of a way to pull through some of the more guiding concepts. And then from there, I open myself up as a channel and let anything that comes through come through for you. Okay. So let's see what we have when we pull a couple cards here. Mm-hmm. Okay, so it looks like there's there's a chance that your problems are going to be resolved in a way that is still very foreign feeling to you right now. No pun intended. But something coming through, something coming together that maybe isn't what you have intended, but takes you on a little bit of a journey that goes in another direction. And I see actually more travel in your future than what you're planning on. It looks like this intention that you have right now of bringing your roots down into one place is actually not completely lined up with something else that's in you that wants something that's a little bit different. And what that looks like to me is that there's this part of you who actually has like kind of taken all those roots, picked them up, and gathered them into like this little, portable root ball right underneath you, and is ready to like really bring that around and go to other places, which is interesting because to me, if I were using my own just logical thinking brain, I'd be like, well, that doesn't make any sense. Like, this is the time of COVID and like not being able to do things and having restrictions and stuff like that. But that's not what it's showing for you. And this is something that I'm not pulling this from these cards. I'm pulling this from just what I'm getting for you. And there are a couple places specifically that are, one place that really in particular that's really like jumping out with a name, which is Australia. And I don't know if you have any connection to Australia, have been there, or have thought of doing any work there, but I'm seeing that, and I'm seeing that as maybe something that's even potentially going to be happening this winter, because I'm seeing you there in summer and it's their summer. So that's something that you maybe could use that as like a little bit of a seed to guide you forward, and check it out and see, is there anything there? Is there any reason that you might be drawn to that space?
Can I see Australia? Only for my work, only for work, and I see the Philippines more, and they're not that far away. So, yeah, that region of the world, most definitely.
It's specific that place in particular jumped out very specifically. So just keep your mind open to it. It's not something that you have to dig into too much on your own, and just see kind of, now that it's seated in there, you can just kind of see what comes about, if anything happens around that for you. But also I'm just seeing a lot more travel in general. And this space that you're in now of kind of being a little bit more physically and emotionally isolated, it's looking like. You're kind of, all right, I'm on my own. I'm doing this on my own. I'm figuring it out on my own. And there's a lot of work to do, and I'm doing that on my own too. I'm seeing more of like this pull for you in your soul of like, that's cool. Like, I want to know that I'm self-sufficient, but honestly, I really need a team. I really could use a team. And that's the call that I keep hearing, like coming out from you, emanating out from you. So that's your magnetism right now. That's, whether you see it or not, what you're putting out. And so your experiences are being based on that. That's what is drawing you toward things. And that's what is being drawn toward you at the same time. So even if you're right now like, all right, I'm going to do this thing, I'm going to do it on my own, I'm going to put my roots down somewhere on my own, universe is saying, actually, you're going to be brought to your team. So that might change your plans a little bit. And if you have this workload in front of you right now, like it's really feeling very, very thick. And I don't want to say heavy, because it's not feeling like it's something that's necessarily on you or over you. It's like you have a lot of motivation, you have a lot of energy to do this, whatever this big thing is, And it looks like right now you've kind of identified that focus as like, well, what this is going to mean for me is finding a place where I can ultimately belong, put my roots down. And that is just kind of just very gently kind of saying to me in this really playful way, like, he doesn't even know. He doesn't even know what's coming, what's about to happen. And I'm feeling this really extreme, not to throw you off, but a very extreme acceleration in things for you, in the way that things go. Part of that's going to be coming through your dreams. Really pay attention to your dream space. And really, if you're doing work in meditation, really use the space between being awake and asleep. So before you fall asleep at night, and as you're waking up in the morning, because in those spaces, you're going to be getting some very potent guidance. It's going to come in the form of ideas and seeds. And those little seeds, those little tiny things will kind of float with you through your day and stick to stuff, and they'll snowball and they'll gain momentum. So that's a space where you can be getting more of this guidance through for yourself too. Writing anything down that comes through to you can be really helpful too, because sometimes it'll just kind of go unless it has somewhere that you've been able to kind of stick it and keep it in one place, you know? So even if you just have a document running in your phone, a little notepad or something like that that you carry with you, whatever works, so that you can catch those things as they come, because there is an aspect of your own psychic awareness that is coming more to the forefront. It's coming more to center stage. I'm seeing a book, and it looks like something that you're going to either write or be a part of. And it could be that you're going to be a part of that, and that has some of your team members involved in it. So this team that's coming together for you is really important. That should be what you're looking at as your foundation and where you want to put your roots down. So you should be looking at putting your roots down in other people right now, more than in a location, because finding those people is going to take a little bit of travel for you. You're a world person, and you have a lot of the world to see still, and to travel over, and the call that you have to maybe be in one place is more of like I need a little bit of rest kind of feeling. Like, I'm a little bit tired. I kind of need to just get my bearings and feel like I have the nourishment that I need to be able to go forward on this journey, you know? So there's no rush, and there's nothing that's going to come or that's going to happen that will make you feel rushed. All of the energy that I'm getting and that I'm feeling for you is very much about, it's like you yourself are a catalyst for other people, right? And at the same time, you're in this place right now where you, whether you see it or not yet, are opening yourself up to allow other people to be catalysts for you too. And they're really going to bring you into yourself in a way that feels really nourishing and fulfilling. So there's nothing to be afraid of. It's not going to come too fast. And it's actually going to take a lot of the work off your plate. Where it feels like there's so much to do right now, it's really going to take a lot of that off. It's going to give you a lot of that nourishment and that energy back into your spirit and into your body. And you're going to be like, what? I totally forgot how it feels to play. And so having that come back is going to be really nice and really refreshing. So you can look forward to that. You can open up to it. Along with that, I'm seeing just a lot of increased support really in every way. So that's going to be financial support. That's going to be just that innate security, you know, that you look for, that stability that you look for in other ways, whether that's creating a home and putting your roots down, or having something career-wise that's sustainable. That's all coming into play. It's all just kind of spiraling, collecting all the pieces. They're showing me collecting all the pieces from all these different places where you're doing this work, right? But you don't see yourself yet as a part of this larger team. So to you, it feels really exhausting and really stressful. And it feels like there's so much on your plate. But what they're showing me is, look, see Kevin, here he is. And here are all these other people that are on the team. They're also magnetizing things, and they're also being magnetized to each other. And they're also doing just as much work. And if he could see that, then he wouldn't feel like he had the whole thing on his plate, you know? So they're showing me that there's this larger picture that you're a part of. And as soon as you're able to see that, it's going to feel like so much less.
That's great. Yeah. I would not even thought that this was going to go in that direction, but that makes so much sense. Even the Australian thing makes a lot of sense. You don't know that, but it really does.
No.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
And I'm seeing there too. There's like some special sort of talisman, or like some special object that I'm seeing in the sand on the beach in Australia. So perhaps more of like an ocean connection there, something where you're really close to the water and those, because I'm seeing sort of like this bluish colored shining crystal, and that can be a literal thing, or it can just be kind of a little gem, like a little seed. Like there's something there that is literally physically calling you to it, and it's unavoidable.
Could you be thinking it's Australia, but it's some part of Asia? It's something close near Australia, or it's two things?
Well, I can't really answer that because it's not I'm thinking of. It's something that was delivered you know? So why it was delivered could be somewhere outside of what I can perceive and interpret. Maybe there's going to be a who are able to take that information in a direction that, you know, isn't
Well, it's that side. It's that side of the world. Yeah, I get. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. You say that. So you don't know. You don't understand. You'll not know. But yeah, that's so interesting. You say that. Yeah.
There's something over there for sure. It just feels so warm and like family, so comforting and like family.
Oh, is that all right? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it feels like something you've been missing because at this point, your energy is feeling a little, like kind of cold and clammy.
Oh yeah.
Like there's something that's just like, not there that normally is. And it feels like it actually hasn't been that crazy long since you've had that there, but it feels like it at this point because it's feeling really absent. Like there's this warmth that is a part of you and is a part of your spirit and your heart. And it's just not really able to be fully functional and playful right now because of stress, honestly. Like that's the main thing that it's looking like. And the message that I keep getting for you is just like, it's going to feel absolutely amazing and miraculous to you how easily that's wiped away and how there's actually nothing lost. There's nothing that you have to refigure. There's nothing that you have to go back to. There's no stress in that structure. As soon as this illusion is wiped away, this little bit of misdirection just in the way that you've been thinking you need to go is wiped away, which will come just in the blessings of your natural magnetism. You're just going to be floored at how nice and warm that is when it comes back in and how easy that is for that to come back in. And everything just rearranges and kind of just, you know, sticks where it needs to. And it's all good. A lot of that really just comes with outsourcing that work to other people. A lot of that work to other people. Yeah.
I mean, it almost feels like you're, you know, that in one sense it's saying, you know, you're not gonna this idea of seeing through what you thought you was going to see through in America is not quite, it's not there. But I don't know. Maybe it's not saying that. It would have to say that I can't spend any more than a month away from here. If I could even go, I can't even travel yet. I'm not allowed to leave. If I leave, well, I could leave. I can leave, but it would be at the dissolvement of my immigration process. And
yeah.
With it being such a long immigration process, you know, I don't know if I've got this. Well, I mean, you would be allowed to travel. They don't recommend it though. If you are able to get this certain documentation that's needed, and I've applied for it, but I mean, there's no guarantee when that's going to be. And I don't even know if you can do multiple travels. All I know is you can't stay outside the country for more than 1 month. And I know that a lot of lawyers don't recommend even using it unless you've got the whole process has been seen through. It's funny. Just recently, I've just been like, you know what? I just don't care anymore. I don't really care about. I should care, but I just kind of given up on this whole thing. It's just there's not a lot over here. Do you know what I mean? It's like, you know, I mean, what are we doing? I mean, it'll have been, you know, total isolation for a year and 3 weeks, and it does have a bit of an effect. It definitely makes you rethink everything. But right now, it's just like, well, God, you know, who cares anymore? I don't. No one else does if I don't. So right. I don't.
Super necessary in your process, because regardless of what you want to happen, you have to have that little bit of detachment in order for things to be able to start to flow. You're really are. And that warmth and all of that is starting to flow back. And I can even feel it and see it now. That warmth is starting to flow back to you already. I can see it and feel it happening now. It's like if you could imagine, like, if the color yellow was liquid. Okay, maybe don't imagine that. That could have connotations that we don't want. If gold was liquid, that had this really beautiful lightness to it.
Yes, that's only happened recently for me. That has, and that's through bumping into people. I guess not locally, not in this country.
Right.
Which is the crazy thing. Yeah.
But it really feel like for some reason there's just been this structure that's kind of been externally created, like something where you're like, I need to be here for this reason. And then it's like that reason is dissolving, and it's really going to free you up to be able to follow a path that's just a little bit different. You'll still get the value from having the experiences that you've had. You'll still be able to carry that with you, but your path just might change and go in a little bit of a different direction than you think it will. Good news is you don't have to really stress or try to do anything differently at this point, because it's all just going to unfold for you.
Your plane tickets out of is waiting for you anyway, Kev, so there's no point trying to fight it. I get it. I would be so surprised if I gave up on what I'm doing right now.
Yeah.
But or maybe it's going to go through quicker than I think, you know.
Or maybe it won't feel like giving up on it. Maybe there's just going to be something else where it's like, I would be insane to say no to that experience.
Maybe. Yep. Thank you for that. Yeah. Or maybe this is in a bit of time. Maybe what's coming through you right now is just not right now. It's just a little bit ahead.
Yeah, that's also possible, for sure. Yeah. So my advice to you is to just take this as a seed. You know, it's been now something that since we've talked about it, in your consciousness and your awareness, and it's something that'll just open you up a little bit and allow some of that good stuff to flow to you even more easily. Yeah.
And when you said about the book, well, funny you say that as well. So that's been in the works. So yeah, I haven't talked about it, but it is. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So that's cool. You got It's funny that you went to Australia. That is, well, it's not even funny, but it's just that's pretty cool.
Good. Mm-hmm. I'm glad that it's.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. And that would be the reading. Well, as briefly, I mean, when you do this with a client, I mean, of course, you know. Well, okay, let me ask you this then. What is the difference then from what you gave me there from an energy reading that you do and a psychic reading? Because are they two different, or can they combine sometimes?
They usually do combine, but it depends on what a person sets for their intention. And if the intention at the beginning of the session is to do some clearing, to rearrange energies, to open up to more of their own guidance, you know, things like that, then we put more of an intentional focus into the energy work portion of things. Other than that, I always, I say typically not like to a person at the beginning of the session, but on my website where it describes the psychic readings, I talk about how energy work is a natural part of what happens during my psychic readings, because we're in this channel together, you know, we're in this connection. And so naturally, anything that's coming through me is also coming through you, and it will change and rearrange things. So if that's something that you want to have more feedback on as we go through the reading, I can always give you that and tell you what I'm seeing open up and change too.
Yeah, because this was only sort of meant to be like a quick demonstration. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But that was really impressive. I've got to friggin' well say that, because what I asked there was answered in such a different way, and with stuff that you know nothing about, and that's always lovely to have that. Wow, yeah, great, very impressive. Yeah, I mean, what's your normal feedback? I mean, do you get much feedback or?
Yeah, usually from clients. Yeah, it's usually like that, pretty much. It depends, because sometimes the readings that I do are a lot more mediumship. And it happens. Sometimes people will be like, this is specifically what I want. And then that's what we go in with. That's our intention. But usually there's mediumship. It will just be people kind of popping up like, hey, you know, can I give a message? Sure. Yeah. And so in those situations, the feedback is even more magical because it has that really deep emotional connection, you know. But when it's straightforward psychic reading like that, then typically, yeah, people are just kind of like, I wouldn't have even thought of thinking about it that way, you know, or you brought something through that maybe I knew was inside me somewhere, or knew could have been a possibility somewhere, but just really hadn't even considered. You know, are narrow times. And I think that part of my job is to help bring things in from the periphery and go, okay, but this is here too. And you're forgetting to include that because you got so focused in on that thing.
It's funny, I haven't told anyone about that I was in my mind privately just the consideration of jumping to that side of the world. But I would only want to do it, I think, once I've seen through my green card process here, because I'd want to come back to America. I feel that the future is here, but there's something else pulling us over there. You're right.
Yeah. You look at astrocartography at all?
No.
So that's like the pseudoscience of, or the spiritual science of how your energy matches up with the energy in different places in the world. And I don't know very much about it at all, except for that I can feel where people are connected, and it feels like you're healthy there. So that's just something worth putting out there.
Yeah. I mean, I not that we should try to figure out our future, but sometimes I would, I do feel that, some part of it is in Vegas, of all places, but it is, but it's not. That's not to live. That would be, but it's not like it would be a home from home. Do you know what I mean? It's not. It would be. It'd be work. But I know there's something calling us there, but that's not yet. And just thank you for that. So impressive. So. Yeah, and what you were doing there, you were just you would say you were just channeling the information. You're just bringing that information through, and as a conduit to what needs to be told.
Yep.
Right. Okay. Well, let's just start the interview, because we're going to do this a bit of a different way. Obviously, you're giving the reading first, which is always good to do things differently. When you're doing that reading, then what guides do you think you're working with, or if any?
I wish I knew that, but I don't, honestly. Sometimes there are so many different energies and guides that will come through, and some are really specific. Some will be like, show me an image, or it'll be a specific person. And most of the time, though, it's just all more subtle. It's like reading subtle energies and being able to pull out the feelings and stuff like that. But then at the same time, getting like airdropped actual words and pieces of information and visions and stuff like that. So I think that for me, just because in my young adulthood, I had so much experience with which energies not to interact with, I got to the point where I'm like, I don't need to know exactly who or which energies I am interacting with, as long as I know how they feel.
Right, yeah, because when you were younger, then I guess you were really open to a lot of different energies, and some were good energies, and some weren't serving you at all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I think as well, you've obviously you study quite a bit, you read quite a few books, and I know that when we spoke at one point, the Seth material was obviously something that you were sort of reading and diving into. Is that material that sort of really resonates with you when it comes to the side of channeling, in a sense?
Oh yeah, I really love learning about how other people do channeling. It's so mind opening to me, and the Seth material was really beautiful to me. What I have read, there's so much I have not read at all, but it, number one, for me, really resonated with the way that I started channeling when I was young, because at that point I was doing more trance work. I was doing more going all the way deep, letting whatever energy wanted to come in and speak through me or take control, do that, which I don't recommend. I feel like I'm so guided and I'm so protected that I don't feel that there were any negative effects that actually stuck with me from that. If anything, I just really learned a lot, and I was able to learn how to discern which types of energies I want to interact with and which I don't. But I think that one of the things that the Seth material has that is really cool to think about and to learn from is that they open up a specific channel, like one channel that gets so well worn that it's just like you can flip it on and off like a light switch, where for me, I'm more open up to, actually, I can talk about the process of this a little bit more later, but it's kind of like into terminology that most people would understand, just a higher frequency, raising my frequency up And so then the things that can communicate with me are up there, so then I can get all these different pieces and bits, and I don't actually create that super specific channel unless I'm working to connect with one specific deceased person. That's usually the only time that I would do that. The Seth material is so cool to me because it's like meeting and discovering this relationship with someone that you really, really, really get tight.
Absolutely. And I mean, your take on channeling then, how would you summarize what your take on channeling would be? Because obviously, you know the Seth material, you've watched many other channelers, and obviously they're all doing it in different ways. As you say, some are having that intimate connection with a deceased or some sort of spirit guide or whatever it is that they're working with, right? But with you've sort of embraced it into the whole medium and the psychic sort of work that you're doing as well.
Yeah. So for me, it's kind of unfurled all by itself. Of course, I do the work, and so it's not like I've been inactive and just had this happen. That's not what I'm saying. But in the way that a million little pieces have come together to create something, it's really kind of been a self-organizing process where any one big experience where it's like, this is who we are and we're going to channel through you now. It was more me having this curiosity and this ability from childhood and being like, you know what? I think that everybody can do this. I think that everybody has access to this. And even in my deepest moments of self-doubt, of feeling like, why me? I've been working in just the material world, trying to do school, trying to be successful, trying to do all this stuff. Why me? Why would I be able to access that? Even in those deepest moments, I've had these threads of spirituality just kind of gently come to me and pull me back up into this space and go, look, you actually are able to do this. And it's not just you who can do this, it's everybody. And you can teach people that. So I've done a lot of exploring in a very curious way of kind of figuring out what that could look like for me.
And I like the idea of you using that the understanding of the concept of the idea that everything's channeled. And I obviously I do feel that it's not something I go around talking about too much, except for this docuseries. But I think more people now are when people open themselves up like yourself, it is a form of channeling, most definitely. And you hear that word channeling, don't you, in the mainstream so much more right now in the films and the TV shows. They're always dropping that word, aren't they? Just culturally, which is always so cool to hear. And yeah.
Can I add to that?
Please, yeah. There's so much I want to ask you. Please go ahead.
There's something important there, a little seed in what you're saying, and two things actually. The first is that yes, you said everything's channeled. And I think that that's so important because when we can look at it that way, we can really see that we have the power to choose what we bring through us as a sacred vessel. So I am this person, right? What aspects of me am I going to bring through today? What aspects of what's beyond me am I going to bring through today? What energies am I going to allow to inhabit my being today? So when we can really see ourselves as being a channel, then we get to tune ourselves to decide what we're channeling. And that's so important because if we think only certain people are channels, only certain people are able to do this, we put ourselves in a position where we're, first of all, disempowered because we think that we need to go and access someone else in order to have higher information come through us. And second of all, also disempowered because we're not choosing how we're going to use our own spirit, how we're going to use our own divinity. And it's really important that these concepts are being talked about in the mainstream, and the work that you're doing is so important, bringing this to people, catalyzing people, because we all need to be able to have this awareness and to be able to choose how we're going to do this, right?
Because it can come in so many forms. I'm sure even if you're a car mechanic, sometimes you'd be like, where did that spark of, how did I know to look in that particular place, when really it's not on, this particular fault's not mainstream. Do you know what I mean? It's so, but there it is. There, there's you sort of like, we all do it, don't we, in different ways, don't we? That we open ourselves up and that greater part of ourselves comes through, which is the soul or whatever you want to term it. But that's just my understanding of it right now. What I like about your work as well is that I'm sure that after you've done the reading, still the work continues, because you're
It's like we were talking about, it's this tuning process. So it's like, you meet with someone who has this really high frequency, right? And you know that you have the possibility of going there, of making that your normal. But for you, and I'm saying you as in like the general you, but for you, you're in a place where that's not always normal. And it could be because your environment is just really reinforcing things that it's difficult for you to get to that place to maintain it. But you keep choosing to come back to this space with this person who can hold you in this frequency, right? Who can hold you there. And that is like a practice. It is a practice that tunes us and brings us up into more of ourselves. So it's a really empowering practice. And then with that, we're able to start to make those choices, those fine-tuning choices, and go, okay, which channels do I want to open? And so say, for example, I work with a lot of artists because I am an artist. I also work with a lot of mothers who are rediscovering their intuition, who are rediscovering their sensuality and their sexuality, and how to channel all these energies in a way that's really beautiful and productive. I work with a lot of men who are working on balancing their masculine and feminine energies, all sorts of stuff. But really, it's this process of fine tuning and going, which channels do I want to open in my life so that I can be as successful as possible in this line of work, so that I can be the best mother that I can be, so that I can be choosing love instead of anger in every moment, or so that I can be psychically working with my clients in a way that's more productive, or, so we get to make those really cool fine-tuning choices. And every session, it's like, you just get a little bit closer to that. And I love it.
Yeah. I don't know why I want to say this to you, but it's almost like opening up a persona of yourself, some other part of you that's there in the background. I was watching something just the other day about how I don't know if this is related or not, but like how Beyonce has a alter ego, and how many people use the alter egos as a way to channel a different version of themselves. Like, so when she goes on stage, she's not going on there as her who she really is. It's this Sasha Fierce character that's coming out and is channeled from her on stage.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I feel that there's some magic there, and there's also some dissociation. And we just need to be a little bit careful about if we're creating lines between aspects of ourselves that we're not able to integrate.
Yeah. I don't really understand it, to be quite honest with you, and I might be wrong to say that it's even a form of channeling, but I don't. Go on, sorry.
Oh, I was just saying, I don't think you're wrong. I think that is a form of channeling.
Okay, so you would say then that obviously you're happy to say that channeling is something that you do with the psychic work, but for those that are just getting into that side of themselves, just opening up to the psychic ability, and that may feel a bit confused with the word channeling in there as well. Really, we all have the ability, don't we, to we're all able to connect to our soul. We're all able to. All answers lie within, don't they? If we really wanted to find our answers, they're all within, aren't they?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think points within.
Yeah, I always say to myself, God, if I really wanted the answer, all I got to do is just, sit down, meditate, be quiet with myself, and just see what comes through when I've asked something. And even if it's my voice coming back to me, it's still, most times, it's sensible, it's caring, it's loving, and an answer does come back.
Yeah, that's great. And I think too that because we're so different, just as humans, like across such a wide spectrum, for some people, meditation works really well for things like that. And for some people, they have to be a little bit more action oriented and get out in the world and have movement, and their answers will come back in that reflection. And it's not that you do both and can't do both and doesn't do both, because we all do all of it, right? But I think that sometimes in my life, when I've gotten stuck, I've been in a position where I've been thinking, I should just be able to source all this from within myself, when really I needed to just go out and kind of haphazardly take some action and create some movement and get some feedback. And feedback can be a really powerful pointer to within also.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you there that there's so many ways of doing it, isn't there? Yeah, I mean, action's got to be done. Do you know what I mean? Action has got to be done, but there's got to be a bit of trust in there in the universe as well. That it's always seems to have your back, no matter what you're going through. That it's always something you're getting from it, isn't there? No matter what we go through, there's something long term that you just don't maybe always see to begin with. That's there. That makes itself known in the end in different ways. That this was a good thing to go through, and you've grown from it.
Mm-hmm. Always.
Yeah, always. But it's difficult to see it, isn't it? Sometimes the light for the tunnel, but it is there. And you're not just into the psychic work as well. You obviously, you've mentioned there. I think you mentioned there that, but I'll mention it. You've got the music. You've done, and you still do some modeling as well. You're a mother. You've got the artistic side, which obviously comes from the childhood, which we're going to get into as well. So that there's a number of different things, purposes, I guess is what I'm trying to say. There's a number of different purposes that you've got, would you say?
Yeah, absolutely. It's very multifaceted, and it's been quite a journey of learning how to create my own path and not go with what other people tell me that I need to do, because otherwise there's no way that I would have been able to unite all these things.
God, no way. We'll get into that as well while you're saying that. Absolutely no way. And now you've gone down your own path to do the things that you're doing. How are those people that maybe weren't so supportive before, but obviously they're still in your life, you love them very much, but how is that relationship now with when they view you as what you're doing?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because the people that are in my life have never been anything but supportive, but they have been supportive in their reality instead of being able to step in and be supportive in my reality. So,
right. Yeah. Keep
do you
going.
think, that's not going to make you any money. What are you going to do? Because that's their reality, and it's valid. It's I can listen to too much, because if I listen to that too much, then I can't hear this.
No. And how do you balance that?
I think, well, first of all, seeing everyone in my life as a teacher is really important to me. Everyone, every experience, every emotion. I think pain has been a huge teacher in my life, as much as I would like to not admit that, So for me, just knowing that the people that are speaking there's a message there that's valuable to me, even if I have to pick it apart a little bit and get something out of it that's a little bit deeper. A lot of the times that message is just, wow, this person really loves me, or they wouldn't even have anything to say, and just keeping that foundationally and knowing I also am a teacher. It's my job to be able to listen to all of this and still go, I hear you. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to show you. If you're willing to stick around and watch this process, I'm going to show you a different way, because it hasn't been done before. And that takes a leader's spirit. And not everybody in my life has that. There are a lot of people who are, they're on paths that are just a little bit different and kind of need someone else to open things up a little bit, to open doors up a little bit and say, it's safe to come in here. It's safe to step into that part of yourself. So I know that I have a job to do. That's part of what keeps me going, even when it's really difficult.
And you're an inspiration to other women as well, to be in your power doing that, because more women need to do that. And men need to see that as well. And it needs balance. We all need balancing up sometimes. Do you know what I mean? But it is very empowering to see that, and it's lovely. And yeah, I just in my head I'm just thinking, gosh, she's so young, but then she's like, you're an old soul. You're definitely an old soul. I mean, do you feel that way sometimes?
I do. I also feel like, because I've chosen the most difficult path almost 100% of the time in my life, for God knows what reason, I have learned so much so fast that it puts me in a position now where I'm like, wow, I have everything. Like there have been a lot of times where I felt really lost and really confused, and it's felt like everything was just flying around all around me. And now it's like I have this wisdom where I know how to collect and assemble.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And do you think in dark times relied on some of that wisdom, what you know, this connection you've got now, or do you think the journey has been, you know, going through those dark times and leading to where you are now, where you've got a solid connection with it, and you know, sometimes you have to go through things on your own without the, you know, without that connection maybe?
I have always had this connection, and even that have been really dark, I've had it. It's just taken different forms. So sometimes it's taken the form of like the tiniest little seed of hope ever, where I've just been so dark and I've had no promise of anything getting better, where I've been like, but it could still get better though. And if it does, I want to stick around to see that happen. Like, it's worth it to me to do this because it could potentially get better. You know, the promise is really just, I guess maybe it's not even, it doesn't feel like a promise in those moments. The hope is that there could be something so drastically different than what I'm experiencing. And that has been enough. That's been enough to lead me out of times where I really, really did not know how to navigate what I was going through.
Yeah, I mean, and I want to talk about that as well. No, I know you didn't, and it's and like you say, that process got you through it as well, and has led you to living in purpose. So, and just going to the music as well. There was a track that you've got on. Well, there's your website is. Just give us your website just for the podcast.
Sure, www.mamarose.blog, and it's spelled MAMAROSE.blog.
Right, and there's a track on there. I think it was not done too long ago. It's called "Fool." There's a couple of tracks on there. You know, great videos, great music. You've done, you know, really well, because I think some of the stuff you did with a group, which I think you're still with, and you went solo with your own EP not too long ago as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I do things both in my collective, which is called Pact, P-A-C-T, and then I also am a solo artist, and I've always been both. So Pact, we started about 2.5 years ago, but I've been doing solo stuff preceding that also.
And again, all the links are, if you go to Show Me just below, you'll see all the links for your music as well. And I've forgotten your name there. What you like me to call you? It's my gosh, how's that left my brain? It's Mama Rose. My gosh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, it just left my small brain there. Mama Rose is the name that you go by.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and that's something you're going to continue as well. The music. I mean, the music, the art. You know, it's all a form of expression for you, isn't it? In this connection that you've got, I guess, and we've all got, and we all use it in different ways.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And for me, the music is really where everything's able to come together, because I can bring tone, frequency, healing frequencies and tones into my music through my voice, and also through production, because I do produce instrumentals as well. So I can layer my voice, I can create the relationship between different notes in harmonies. And then I can also bring messages and words there. And that is honestly my favorite way to do healing work, because it's so personal, it's so vulnerable. I can speak about experiences that I've gone through, and I can also guided imagery, and I can give those things as gifts to people. I can give that to my clients, and I can give that to anyone who wants to listen in the world, and it's just so available.
Yeah, and like you say, it's an easier way for you to talk about it as well, because some of the stuff which we're going to get into, it's raw still, isn't it? Well, you know, but we'll get in there, and it is for a lot of people, and I think you're brave to even, you know, talk about it like you have done in the past as well a little bit. Okay, so you did touch on in this conversation a tiny bit of almost like the law of attraction. I think you've got a different take on the law of attraction. Or, you know, what is the process for you? Maybe I should ask, for the law of attraction. If, you know, we've got this purpose, but we also want, you know, to attract things into our lives, no matter what they may be, right? What's your take on it, do you think?
Yeah, so I've had quite a journey exploring the law of attraction. And starting from way before I had ever heard that term, and spanning through getting really attached to that term and attached to the teachings that I was finding through different literature, videos, and things like that. And then another experience of breaking away from that, expanding beyond that, and coming into really understanding that for myself experientially. So for me, I've learned just through continuing, through living, how to make myself a magnet. And in being able to choose my own frequency. It's really, I mean, it's exactly what you hear, but being able to choose my own frequency, I am choosing what comes into my life in a big way. But the biggest part of that, and I think the thing that people don't want to open up to, is that you still only get to make the choice of your own frequency. And then your actions that you're taking, and action can be visualization too, right? So we have all this control, and we can really choose a lot of what we create, but there are always going to be things that we don't choose, or that we don't know that we choose. And the key is being able to choose your frequency in those moments. So I've had lots of experiences where something that seems like or feels like I could go absolutely into the hole of this is terrible. I could go there. But instead of that, I go into gratitude, and that's a choice. And I might not understand this yet, and I'm grateful. And I'm going to choose that. I'm going to choose to be grateful. I'm going to choose love. I'm going to choose connection. I'm going to choose to nourish myself in whatever ways that I need to. I'm going to choose to be in this place. Because that, I know that that's giving me the best chances of navigating it, and of turning it into a gift. And in that way, by making those choices, every single painful experience that I've ever had has flipped and turned itself into a gift. And it's like rocket fuel when that happens.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you for that as well. It's such an important message, most definitely. Yeah, it is like rocket fuel. Yeah, you just can't, it just sends you into directions that just seem so far ahead, don't they? In your development as well. So I guess you've had to learn a lot about the business as well, because to me, your journey feels like, you were doing this by yourself. There was no sort of support there in a sense. You've had to learn this all yourself, right? So that's, I bet you've got a lot of even business advice for people getting into the field.
Yeah. And that's one thing that I feel very blessed to be able to work with my clients on, because I have a lot of clients who are like, okay, I've been kind of watching what you're doing, and I'm into stuff like that too. So maybe you could not only help me open up to more of this in my own life, but also kind of give me some tips on how to do it. And so I love that I can do that I have that to share.
Yeah, because how many sort of readings do you think over time you've given to people, would you say? I mean, obviously there's no complete number, but I mean, what's a rough figure, do you think?
That's a great question. I would say hundreds, but I'm not sure how many.
So enough. Yeah, quite a few. Because you've been doing this for how long now?
Well, professionally since 2017, but I've been doing it my whole life. It just took me some time to, like you said, figure out the business aspect of it, and to be able to package it into something that I could say, we can sit down together at the same time, and I can offer this to you, and it doesn't just like happen when it happens,
Yeah, and finding the best use for your gift as well.
Yeah.
I think that's important. I think a lot of people have a gift, but yet they don't understand what they could do with it, maybe.
Yeah, and that's one of the most frustrating places to be in, is when you have all the energy for something and you're like, how am I supposed to, how do I hold it? How do I package it? How do I give it?
Yeah. I could see you teaching it one day, most definitely. Most definitely. Yeah. I could. Now another. So we've got the modeling. I was going to say another part of the work is the modeling, and some of the modeling that you've done. That's what's the word I'd say? It's not through a modeling agency. It's this work that you've done privately. Would you say?
So I'm an independent model. I also modeling, but that's a separate. My own art. In my own art, I do modeling in a lot of different capacities with a lot of different photographers. My mother is actually a really amazing photographer, so I work with her a lot, and that's just a really cool thing.
Yeah, yeah, right. Okay, well, yeah, because and that's where you probably get your artsy side from as well, is mum. I'm guessing that's what she was doing back in the day, in a sense, art.
Yeah, my mom's an artist, so she's always been there to encourage me. She's also always been an entrepreneur, so she's taught me like everything, guerrilla marketing, getting down and doing the work. And then my dad is really hands-on. He grew up as a farmer and carpenter and has taught me a lot about, he does a lot of technology stuff too. So I've gotten a really good mix of like, okay, with all of these skills put together, I could create something.
Yeah, absolutely. That's such a cool mixture. Yeah, and again, you're into the empowerment of the feminine, and I think with your work, there's a deep spiritual connection with sexuality as well, which some of your clients come to you for as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of sexual healing work that happens in my readings and in my sessions. And I think that a lot of the time that can sound intimidating to people because it's really a vulnerable place to be when we feel like we're opening up that part of ourselves, but a lot of the times it doesn't even feel like that's what we're accessing, because our sexual energy is our creative energy too. So more than anything, we're stripping off everything that it isn't. We're stripping off everything that sexual energy isn't, and getting back to like, oh, there's this pure innocence and playfulness that's here that can explore what sexual energy is, and it doesn't have to have all that shame, and it doesn't have to have all that dogma, and it doesn't have to have all these prior experiences. Like, we can set that down, we can move forward, and we can actually enjoy this part of ourselves in our lives. But it tends to be really, what's the word? Usually, like, it creates a lot of change when to open that part of ourselves up, because sexual energy is very, it's very uncompromising, and it'll tell us who we are and what we need, not just in terms of sex, but what we need in terms of our life purpose. And anything that isn't that, it will come in and it will clean out your cupboards, and it will say, not that, not that, not that. You're not in that relationship anymore. You're not doing that thing anymore. You're not going to have that job anymore. You're not going to waste this life. Okay. You're more important than that. Your time and your energy is more important than just giving it out to all these people pleasing activities that you were doing. So it really asks a lot of us, and it's very demanding once we start to be able to really feel that intuitive pull there. So it's really beautifully potent work.
Yeah, I don't see loads of people doing it, or not publicly talking about doing it. Maybe once the client's there, though, no problem. But maybe they've not, got it slapped on their website. But I think it's a really important part of the work nowadays, anyway. Right? I mean, there's so many. I've said this on other shows. There's so many women now that have gone down the self-empowerment route. And some people may not feel that, but they've opened up their own OnlyFans accounts. And it's all them. They're everything. Do you know what I mean? They choose what they're doing, being completely empowered by what they're doing. There's no one above them. Do you know what I mean? It's their choice completely. That's changed a lot. And
I think that there's this journey to empowerment where sometimes during that journey, we actually embody our oppressor. So there are times where see women who are on the journey to self-empowerment, and they need to have that space. They need to have the space to be able to be in their own power and discovering what that looks like and what that expression looks like. And that's necessary. And at the same time, part of that journey can actually be embodying their oppressor. So it can be a woman themselves in the position of what they think sexy is, or what men or capitalism or consumerism has told them sexy is. And they say, I'm empowered because I'm choosing to do this now. And that's true. And also it gets deeper than that, because it gets deeper into a place where we're more in tune. We're so in tune with our sexual energy that even some of those things start to fall off and shift and change. So it's going to look different for every person. And this is not just for women, it's for men too, but that sexual self-empowerment and self-empowerment in general, and self-empowerment is naturally going to have sexual energy roped into it. Sometimes there will be pieces in that process where it actually looks like embodying your oppressor.
I've never thought about it like that. Oh my God, that's like mind blowing, isn't it? That past energy they are living out in the work, the work that they're doing now. That's and so many other facets to it, like you say. But that's a really different way of looking at it. Yeah, wow.
And you'll see, and even in more private settings with people, like people who have specific kinks and things like that, they'll say, well, this is, is me, and maybe that's you, and then maybe later it isn't, and that's okay, because we go through this process of being able to express and integrate something. And I think just having the space to be able to talk about those things with other people, express those things with people in a way that feels safe, all of that is so important for our collective healing.
Yeah, with a lot of these sort of podcast shows now, where there's the sort of 20-year-olds that are doing the podcast, doing a great job, right? And the porn industry and all that, it's a part of their show. Do you know what I mean? It's not looked down upon as it used to be. When I was a bit younger. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that there's not dysfunction in that, right? I'm just saying just how we've moved on and how we're moving on, and it's good that less things are being shamed and more things can just be brought to the surface and talked about. You know what I mean? And it's okay.
Yeah, and I think that, like, no matter what your opinion is about something, shame doesn't necessarily need to be involved in it. Because we can think that something is right or wrong, and there still doesn't have to be shame. And something could be right or wrong for us at a certain time in our life, and then not be. And something could be one person and then not be for someone else. So it's just, there's so much fluidity in it. And I have people in my life who I'm close to who have this type of thinking and this type of thinking, almost polar opposites on some of these concepts. I am in a position where I can hold both of those things, and it's be the interplay of everybody, how.
And there can be, obviously, you must, have people that when they come to sort of, look at for that. I mean, because, when you've got with that deeper spiritual connection with someone and a great sex life, I think that's an amazing thing, right, to have. Do you know what I mean? And I think a lot of us don't always get to experience that sometimes.
Yeah. And I think too, that one of the most important things about doing this work, and that's important to acknowledge, is that, of course, any work that we do personally, we're also doing collectively. And ultimately, the fundamental, this is the way that I see it right now, the fundamental underlying root cause of dysfunction in our society is personal dysfunctional sexual energy. And so all these people that we have that are in power, the ruling elite, have this very fundamentally dysfunctional sexual energy. And if we want to do any healing and changing in the world, we kind of at least have to do a little bit of that work within ourselves. We have to open up to that somewhat.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be open and I'll say I think if there are such things as past lives, and I do feel there is, that I don't think I think I was in the churches a lot. I think I cut myself off from my sex and everything else, and I think this is probably one of my first not one first, but one of newer ones in that realm. And I hope I never do it to myself again. But I can see patterns in my life where relationships have come up for different reasons. You think it's one thing, right? But it's actually to show you what you don't want when it comes to that deeper, spiritual sexual connection. Do you know what I mean? And even abusive, relationships have something to teach us as well. Which I've been through one, and I know you have as well. And we'll talk about that, just that very shortly. But yeah, so you can help heal dysfunctional energy, be it sexual energy as well, and that's something that you enjoy doing.
Yeah, and actually all of the energy work is that. So we don't do an energy work session with someone. I usually kind of ask them like how much feedback they want during that process, and sometimes people are like, doing as you're doing it and everything that you see and all of it, and give me guided imagery as we go and help me participate and stuff like that. And some people are like, just do it, and then afterward, I'll just see how I feel. And regardless, even if we have no awareness of what's going on, when we shift the energy in our body and how it's moving, we're working with our life force energy. So we're working with, because that's the same thing. So it's just kind of one of those things where it's like, we have really put this in a box to be something that is not only taboo, but in a lot of ways we think of as being inaccessible. And it's accessible in literally every moment during our day. Like the way that we just interact with ourselves, the way that we experience pleasure, sensuality, movement, touch, connection, intimacy in general, food, everything is this. And it doesn't all have to have that, what like mainstream media wants you to think of is sexual energy, which is like that it's all about like being horny, or it's all about like having this like big out of control, like masculine action burst feeling to it. That's not all what that is. Anybody who's in tune with their creative cycles knows that there are times where this energy sleeps. There are times where this energy is active. There are times where this energy wants nourishment, wants to come in, there are times where this energy wants to be outspoken. It's a lot of things.
Well, as someone that channels, as someone that does the work that you do, and obviously you've got children as well, which is just having kids is a massive job just in its own right. Yeah. So hats off to you for balancing this all out. Right. What would you be teaching them one day in the sense of, and maybe this is too soon to even think about stuff like, but I'm just thinking off the top of my head, like, okay, so if you're going to get in a relationship with someone, make sure that, that there's love there, that, what about that spiritual connection though? What are we trying to say about that when we teach people about that? Are we saying that what you just, there's that, what is that? Do you know what I mean? When it comes to, two people getting together?
Yeah. Well, so I think to go to the beginning of your question, the way that we start to teach children about being empowered and embodied in their own sexual energy, their own creative energy, for kids, all that is play. They just need to be free to play. That's it. And we can still create boundaries for them. We have to create boundaries. Structure, it's our job as parents to keep them safe, and as just adults in general and caregivers. But their creative energy is play. So that's all that they have to even think about. And they don't really think about it. They just do it. So as long as we nurture that in our children, we build them up into beings who know how to handle this when they get older, when they start to go through puberty and they meet adolescence. They meet it in a place where they're empowered and they're curious, and they have caregivers that they can ask questions to and things like that. But that's why it's so important for us as parents and adults to be doing this work, because we do need to be there to be able to guide the youth. We don't want this dysfunctional energy to continue into the next generation and the next and the next and the next. But I think that when we have the blessed opportunity to be a parent, or even to be an aunt or an uncle or someone who's in a child's life, we have this opportunity to nurture their sense of self and their center. And then naturally, they end up teaching us about what a healthy relationship looks like. We hardly do anything. They're like, well, I know what it's like to feel connected to another person because I'm not afraid to be vulnerable, because I can put myself in a situation where I can see what fits for me and I know how to detach when it doesn't. The thing is that we have a lot of kids who didn't get that growing up because their parents have not healed, and their parents may be somewhere in that healing journey that just they're not in a place where they're able to guide right now. Children who are without that guidance and without that sense of self and that sense of center. And in the work that I do, which includes youth work with children who aren't my own, I do art teaching, visual teaching. I've found that super, super helpful is to engage children in an activity that isn't necessarily intended to be a conversation. And they will open up and become more vulnerable through activities than they will if you sit down and you're like, okay, I need you to tell me about what you think love is, And so up with them and I say, here's an art activity that we're going to do. We're going to get out of our head for a little bit. Here's a movement activity that we're going to do. We're going to get out of our head for a little bit. We're going to get into our bodies. We're going to get into our creative energy. As long as we can get out of our head, no matter what method we use to do it, kids will get in a place where they're naturally healing and they're naturally just aligning to that sense of self and their sense of center again. And it's not just kids, that's really all of us. So we have tools like art, music, movement, consensual touch, healthy touch, connection, things like that, where we're able to start to do some of that healing without even really having to focus on it or try to do it. Because if we try to do it with our head, it just doesn't work. We just get spun into all those spirals that are already there.
But obviously, to get to the point where you've got, it's all a journey. It's all, you've had to go through stuff. I mean, let's just, because obviously this is sort of, an interview that I'd normally start at the beginning first, and we've sort of started at the end a little bit here. So, you're still in the state of Minnesota. That's where you're based right now. I think you've always been there, haven't you?
Yep.
So born there and grew up there. And I guess you would say that maybe your gifts when you were younger, they weren't acknowledged, were they? I don't think, if they did come out.
From some people they were. I've had some people in my life who are like, thank you. I'm grateful that you have, no one else will say to me when I need to hear it. And then I've always had other people who are like, you're pretty bold, going around that. Like other people who are like, oh, sure you did, honey. Sure you saw that. Sure you heard that. Sure you had that dream. That sounds like a tall tale. Those people. I would say that as much as my parents could support me from a place of being non-religious and recovering from kind of oppression that came with religion, they were just not really capable of being as open as I was. So they weren't in a place where they could really hold the experiences that I was having. And it just took quite a journey to find the people that have been able to reflect myself back to me.
Well, yeah, not just those people, but for you to trust yourself as well, and to believe in yourself. I think that's the journey that you took to begin with. You can tell me if I'm wrong in just a moment, but let's just go back and fast forward at the same time. So you were offered a academic scholarship for a nursing program actually at St. Kate's University in Minnesota, and that was a 2-year course that you almost finished, right?
It was a 4-year program.
4-year program.
About 2.5 years.
Oh my gosh. Okay, right. So no prior qualifications for nursing. You went straight into the 4-year program, because you can do different types of, I think they can do like 2 years as well, can't you? So a 4-year program. And at that time, I guess it was very much, facts and figures and, everything's academia in a sense. And you felt, was there a point now at this point when you was going through the first 2 years before you quit, was this while you was in an abusive relationship as well, would you say?
Yeah, part of it was actually those full 2 years were. Yeah,
okay. So I guess there was a point where you were even going to counseling, and you must have felt after that counseling that you were losing it. Yeah.
After those first 2 years, and after I left the relationship that I was in, and I did have moments where I was like, I might actually be insane. There's a possibility that everything that I think is special about me is really just me being insane.
Yeah. Now, do you feel that with the work that you're doing now that you do attract? Okay, first of all, sometimes I guess what's going on in your life, is mimicking in the reflection of the reading. Sometimes that there's probably some truth in that.
Say that again.
What's going on in your life is probably being reflected in the readings sometimes that you're having with people.
Oh yeah, for sure. I learn from every reading that I do for anybody.
Right, but sometimes you can see those patterns in your life, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. But do you also find that there's people that come to you that have had abusive relationships, and that you're able to not just sympathize with them, but you're able to understand where they're coming from, which is, I suppose, the same as sympathizing, but you're able to understand them in a sense, and to help them move forward, not just with it, with the channeled reading, but with you know, in alignment with having experienced the same thing as well.
Yes, absolutely. And some of the biggest things with being in a relationship with a partner who is dysfunctional is that it can be really difficult to kind of climb out of the ideas that you start to have about yourself, about your capabilities to function without that person. It's a process that people really need to be held during, and a lot of people, like myself, have done it without being held during it, have done it in almost, you know, complete just sovereignty, where you get into some little bug gets in you and you're like, wait a minute, you know, I gotta do something about this. I need to move. I need to shift. But it really helps to have somebody who can hold you through that process and help remind you who you are, for sure.
Well, yeah, because at the time, I'm guessing for you, you didn't know what the hell was going on. You didn't know what the signs were. You had no there was no reference to what this was until after it happened. But you still managed to pull yourself out. Was there someone there that got? Well, I'm sure there were friends that were saying to you, "This is not healthy. This is not good." That's not, you know. But what really pulled you out? What was the breaking point for you?
The breaking point for me was actually fun and celebration, because so that person that I was in a relationship with at that time, he and I had gone to a party together with some other friends, and I was dancing. I started dancing. And while I was dancing, I had this feeling of my own energy rising back up in me. Like I felt like I was alive again. And I had totally forgotten myself. I had totally forgotten what that felt like. And I felt like in that moment, I started to fall back in love with myself. And all of a sudden it was like, hang on, that's not what I feel when I'm with you. That's not what I don't want to live my whole life not feeling that. What changes do I need to make sure that I don't live my whole life not feeling that? And I didn't even realize at that point the things that were happening in the relationship that I was in that were dysfunctional and abusive. I didn't have that awareness yet. I wasn't able to see that. So I was moving and choosing to move out of the relationship based on following that feeling of myself and expansion and good things, rather than knowing that I was getting away from bad things. I didn't even know that.
Right. So you've got that going on. You've got this abusive relationship. Now, we don't need to get into too much detail. This could have been abusive emotionally. This could have been a bit of both. Right? That's your story. That's for you to talk about if ever you wanted to, right? And I suppose I suppose as well, I should say that you, in the end, did see that you had a responsibility in that as well. And I think that was a little bit of your healing as well when you took responsibility for being in that relationship as well. Do you think?
Yeah, I took not just responsibility for being in that relationship, but for also being an abuser, because it went both ways. And although the things that that person did to me, I would say if I were looking at quantifying like the detriment, I would put myself in a position of receiving more detriment than I gave. But it was, we were teenagers. So we were trying to work on and figure stuff out. The person who I was with had come from an abusive home and was extremely controlling and had really no clue how to function in a healthy way at all. And that's not to excuse anything that he did. But at the same time, I have empathy. So I have that as kind of like a foundation of healing. And even with empathy, I can know where to pull myself away and create boundaries, you know? And then I was in a position where I was also in a family structure that had decayed and kind of rebuilt in a different formation. And I was working through just so many different things that were dysfunctional. And I was working through extreme jealousy. And that's where, for me, some of the really controlling, really abusive behaviors that I gave came from. So in order to heal from this, for me, I had to take a really seriously honest look at, where was I? Well, what did I do how did I get into this situation? You know, how did I contribute? What did I receive? What did I give?
True. It's so true. And I thank you for your honesty there, that, you know, it was a bit two-way sometimes, more from the other than you. But what do you expect? I mean, this is the thing with abusive relationships. You're gonna be triggered. You're gonna, and they always make it look like you're the worst one, that you started it, that it was all your fault. Do you know what I mean? This is the person I'm living. Well, you know how it goes. I don't need to go into it too much details, but yes, it's such a difficult one, and I think as well the healing from that as well. I think you've said this before. You always think you're healed from it, but you're not, are you? It's still there, isn't it?
No, you're like, and then you're like, oh well, okay. I guess there's some more there, but it's because we spiral, and I think that for me, the important thing isn't whether I'm healed all the way or not from anything. It's just time that I spiral back to some of that content. Where am I meeting myself? Because if I can meet myself with love and gratitude for having that experience, and I know that probably sounds crazy to some people, because when you're in the depths of that pain, imagining that you could ever be in a place, it does sound absolutely crazy, but I'm just here to say that you get to a place that your gratitude is spiritual. It's not conditional, and able to hold your whole experience in gratitude. So that's where I meet myself now. And I also meet myself with the tools that I have, which is that if I have some really intense emotions, I make a song about it. I write about it. I ask my partner for what I need. I ask for some extra touch or some space to be vulnerable. I have all these tools that I've built into my life now, where in the past I didn't know what I needed. I had none of that.
No, and let's just go back a little bit more. So you've got you're almost around 22, I guess. Then you've got a child. You've got this abusive relationship going on. You've got all this craziness going on that you both can't seem to escape from. And it could get worse, right? Who knows? And it does sometimes. Look at what happened recently, with Gabby Petito and Brian Laundrie, I think it is, where things go way too fucking far, right? And if anything good comes from any situation like that as well, it's the to talk about domestic violent relationships. Do you know what I mean? It's so important. She left so many gifts to the world. She did, and she will continue to. But for yourself, and then you're in this 2-year nursing degree, or 4-year, 2 years into it, and you don't know whether you want to be doing it no more. You're now questioning, oh my God, am I about to pull away from this degree and pull away from my existing life and take that brave road of changing everything? I mean, guys, that must have been so scary to do that, but it's such an inspiration to other people.
It was so scary, but I had this moment of realization, and it was actually like a moment that kept coming back and back and back. And I just kept thinking, if I do this, what am I saying no to? If I say yes to this, what am I saying no to? Because if I say yes to this, nursing being my thing, I am to a 40 to 60 hour work week. I'm saying yes to being in this type of environment, the type that I was working in at the time, a lot of the time. I'm saying yes to helping people, and that's something that I want to say yes to. I'm saying yes to learning about the human body, which is something I'm extremely interested in. I'm saying yes to using the academic part of my brain, which I love. I'm also saying no to being home with my kids and being a mother. I'm also saying no to being an entrepreneur. I'm also saying no to being an artist in the way that I want to, where that actually is a big, big, big part of me. So I felt like I was saying no to some parts of me that were so big that it wasn't optional anymore just to say no to those things.
Also, what you said yes to as well is that by doing that 2-year program, you actually do a lot of I should have said this earlier on, but you're able to help people with health issues, or you're able, or when the information is coming to you, it makes more sense because you've got that background on nursing. If someone's got a health issue, you're able to tune in easier and sort of like, oh, that's what it's trying to say to me.
Absolutely, I love that, and it's a foundation. It's a foundational piece that I continue to build on. I do a lot of research into health in all different ways, from all different traditions, and Western medicine is a really big part of my life because of my background, because of one of my children who is an extremely medically complex little guy. And so I needed to know these things. If I had that experience, I would not have what I need to be able to navigate managing his health and having conversations with doctors and nurses where I need to present confidence in those situations, And I also am able to come to my clients and go, okay, this is what I'm seeing and I know the word for it. I have the vocabulary for this. I've seen.
Yeah, so important. And I'm sure he chose you for many, many reasons, and you him as well, right? Yeah, that's so interesting. Okay, so just wrapping this up as well, we talk a lot about wounded healers. Well, not we do, but there's a lot of talk about the wounded healers out there. But I mean, that's kind of why I brought the abuse up as well, in the sense, for many reasons, but also we are all healing, aren't we? I mean, this idea that there's many wounded healers out there. Well, I think that's true in some ways, but it's we're here having this human experience, aren't we?
Yeah, and I think that one of the cool things about that is that we all exist in layers. And so when I'm meeting someone in a session, I'm not meeting them with this part of myself that maybe has had a really rough night thinking about whatever I was thinking about. I've done the work to be able to raise my vibration so that I'm meeting them in a space where it's pure unconditional love and the channels are open, so I can pull from my own experience and I can bring that empathy from my own experience. And also I'm working from a place that's really far beyond that. So it's not limiting. And I think that that's where those wounds become really beautiful, fruitful gifts. And they're something that we can bring into our healing practice in a way that's just a gift to other people too.
Absolutely. So let's just recap a few things here. Your website is
www.mamarose.blog, and it's spelled MAMAROSE.blog.
Okay, well, that's been coming up on the screen throughout this interview as well. Thank you. I've never done an interview. Thank you for what you've done and said so far. I've never done an interview where it's kind of backwards as well, which is really cool. What would you say is an important message right now, do you think?
I think right now, an important message is that we need to be speaking. We need to be active. We need to be prioritizing our health and our well-being and the well-being of our people that are close to us above all else. So if you feel right now like anything that your heart is in is selfish, I need you to just quiet that voice that's telling you that it's selfish and do it anyway. Because right now, your gifts are really needed. We're in a time where there's a lot of change and there's a lot of transition in this world. And we're being called to do things, being called in directions where we don't have all of the information to make that make sense yet. And we have to be able to listen to that voice anyway and do it anyway. And we have to be able to cultivate that perspective that we are actually being guided. We have to have trust in that process. So whatever you need to do right now to be able to get yourself into that position where you're cultivating and growing your confidence so that you can speak and discover and explore and contribute your gifts to the world, that is of absolute utmost importance, and nothing else is as important to that. So rearrange your life and figure that out. That's really, really critical. We need you to be here and we need you to contribute your gifts, okay? If you feel right now like your life doesn't have as much value as you'd like it to have, I need you to do the work to explore where you feel value, where you feel like you're giving value, where you feel like you're connecting with other people and what your gifts are, okay? Because we need that. We need that value from you.
That couldn't be more powerful. That couldn't be more freaking powerful. Yeah. Oh my God. I think so many people can resonate with that right now, right? Yep. Okay, well, listen, this has been a surprising interview. I'll say that. Surprisingly good. Not that I didn't think it was going to be anything but it's just, very powerful. Very powerful. So I just want to thank you for what you do, Mama Rose, and I look forward to connecting with you one day in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Kevin. I really appreciate being on.